What is going on, my friends, and welcome back to another video on the channel. Now, you guys know at least once a week we like to get an idea of what the whales are doing, how they're moving their money, what are they trying to do, where are they making their bids, because I do believe, of course, considering they're the ones that manipulate these markets and move these markets and control these markets, we should at least have an idea of what they're doing. So in today's video, we're going to go over that, but before we go over that, we're going to go over a brief summary of the market, talk about what's going on, what cryptos are doing well, which ones aren't, then we're going to go over a pretty unique opportunity for you, and then we'll jump into seeing what the whales are doing. So with that in mind, of course, let's not waste any more time and let's get into it. So looking at CoinMarketCap here, what we can see is that we are still in a state of greed. Now, I would assume after today, this is probably going to pull back just a little bit because we can see that it is a rather rough day. I mean, looking at something like STRK down negative 34%, with the vast majority of the rest of the market between 6 to 7% negative, with a few standouts, right? SC, Leo, BNB, and FET also up between 3 and 6%, or 10% for SC. But at the end of the day, I mean, a rather red day for the market. Now, overall, over the last month, this still just goes to show that this is not that big of a deal. This pullback is not that big of a deal. And even in these moments in which we do see the market turning red, with things, of course, like Bitcoin down 2%, ETH down 1%, Solana down 5%, XRP down 4%, Cardano down 5%, AVAX down 4%, etc. Even in these moments where your macro cryptos, right, are doing not so good, we're still seeing the broad scene still doing well, right? Last month, Render still up 50%, Wild still up 152%, STX still up 80%, Tau still up 130%. It's not that big a deal. And if you look at the year, it even goes to show it even more how well we're still doing. So this is why I'm not really stressing, even though in the last hour and the last day, we've seen the market flip pretty bearish. It's just normal. You're going to see in these moments where the market's doing well that cryptos are going to go up a lot, and then they're going to get smashed to the downside. Then go up a lot and get smashed to the downside. That volatility is what creates liquidations. Liquidations is what allows these manipulators, these market manipulators, the ones pulling the strings, tinfoil hat guy here, it allows them to take as much of the crypto as they possibly can, and so this is normal. Your whole goal is to just not panic in these moments. I personally just buy more. We'll talk about that towards the end of the video when we go over a little technical analysis. Now, speaking of altcoins, again, I am still making some moves. I actually do have an interesting opportunity for you today, something that I did want to cover. It's about Lingo. If you guys remember, I partnered up with him not that long ago. We brought you guys a little campaign to where you could get some rewards. A lot of you actually made some good returns on that, which was fantastic. We have another one for you today. They actually did a private sale not too long ago in which they raised over $5 million in preparation for their main launch. Of course, if you don't remember who they are, this is a company that takes the total transactions and the revenue that they generate from their products, from their services, and from their token, and they then use that to reinvest it back into real estate. Of course, you guys know the real world asset movement is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, of 2024 right now. And so because of that, they are expecting to do extremely well. They have a lot that they want to build out, so they did raise a ton of money. And generally when that happens, you see those whales going in, you see those bigger crypto holders going in. It's usually a good sign that they could do well over the long period. Now, we know that even their team has been successful. I told you about that last time, in which some of the people here have worked with some of the biggest companies in the world. Their owner actually having sold a company for $150 million before. So again, we just know that they are legit. And what I will let you know is, although their private round has closed, I was able to get 5 spots for you guys. I partnered up with them again, and I can get you guys actually 5 spots if you do use my link down in the description below to get some allocation into the token. You guys know I invest a lot, probably too much money into private sales and early investments, as much as I possibly can. I think it's one of the best ways to really generate gains in crypto. And so if you want to go check that out down below, make sure that you do. Again, use my link or use my code that's down there, because at the end of the day, that's the only way you can get it, because again, the private round did close. Now, going over that, of course, that is about it for our altcoin section of the day. Of course, again, like I said, red market, pretty cool opportunity there for Lingo. But now let's talk a little bit about what the whales are doing, because the whales don't seem to be interested in altcoins at all. So, of course, we did get the fund flow reports getting released here from CoinShares earlier this week. And what we can see here is that it has been quite interesting as the crypto asset flows have been absolutely popping off recently. What you can see here is that Bitcoin made up the vast majority, taking up $2.4 billion of inflows, which is insane. Month to date, 3.6 billion, year to date, 5 billion. Absolutely ridiculous. Okay. Now, what you can see is that in comparison to that 2.4 billion, we have a rather measly 21 million for Ethereum, negative 900,000 for multi-asset, negative 1.6 million for Solana, which actually isn't bad, especially considering that the year-to-date flows are still around 3 million, especially all of the stuff that's been going on recently. That's been a good recovery because we saw the outflows pretty damn high earlier in the year. We, of course, see Litecoin 0.6 million, short Bitcoin 5.8 million, which is actually pretty interesting. And the biggest loser in terms of outflows being Cardano with negative 5.9 million. Now, Bitcoin, of course, taking up the vast majority of what all of these whales are doing. Let's get an idea of who that is and how that's broken down. What you can see here is that the Grayscale Investments Trust is still at negative 623 million on the weekly, meaning that there's been over $600 million flowing out of their GBTC fund. Absolutely insane to see the amount of just dumpage that's happened, quite simply over just a fee, which is insane. But they've been losing this thing year to date. They're still looking at about 7 billion in outflows, which is absolutely nuts. But the good part about that is that although they have been getting absolutely wrecked in outflows, a lot of these other ETFs have been able to absorb that liquidity. Looking at something like iShares ETFs currently picking up $1.6 billion of weekly inflows, which is huge. Fidelity itself at 600 million, putting the total at 2.2 billion, $2.25 billion of inflows just from the top two current ETFs, iShares and Fidelity, which I do like to see. XBD did also have some outflows, and I think it's a fee problem as well. Their fees are just not as good as some of the other ones, but we also do see 21 shares at 17 million, which isn't bad for a rather smaller ETF. We have ProShares doing well as well at 109 million. ARK 21 shares at 405 million, which we kind of like to see, and then 330 million dispersed across the other major institutional investors and whales. Now, this is overall amazing. I think this is good. I think this is the reason why we've seen the market doing so well, is because although we have been seeing a vast majority of the shares of GBTC getting absolutely dumped onto the market, we're seeing still that consistent, constant inflow from these ETFs, from iShares, from Fidelity, from ARK, from 21 shares, from these different ETFs, from these different hedge funds that are absorbing that liquidity and buying even more past that. And so in my opinion, once we stop seeing this supply hitting the market, once we stop seeing GBTC getting absolutely dumped on the market, there's a good chance that we really see this market being able to run. Because imagine what this type of buying pressure could do when there's not $600 million being dumped on a weekly basis. I genuinely think that this could put it in a position in which we see the market constantly growing. You mix that in with retail investor sentiment growing. You mix that in with a halving, you mix that in with reduced interest rates, you mix that in with inflation kind of being handled, you mix that in with all of these things, we're in a spot where Bitcoin can double from here. 100,000's in the equation. This is possible, right? How do we get there? I don't know. We'll talk about that in a second in the TA section, but at the end of the day, I mean, this is great. This is great, and this is huge. So because of that, of course, I have been very, very happy to see that the whales are still really, really deep on Bitcoin right now. They're still buying an absolute shit ton. And although GBTC is causing some sell pressure, I don't think it's going to last forever. I'm sure that they're going to run out eventually. Okay, it's kind of just destiny. Or they'll just stop selling eventually, right? Now, on top of that, okay, let's kind of get into the mix then. Let's talk about what's happening from Bitcoin's price perspective. Now, looking at Bitcoin's price here, what we can see is that it is trying its absolute best to hold some support on top of that massive 786 Fibonacci level. You guys know I've said on a very, very consistent basis that if Bitcoin's price was able to break the 786 level at $50,739, that we would open up the door to Bitcoin being able to go up to $103. I genuinely believe that, and now that we've been able to do it, even though it's been for a couple days and we might break that back down below this level, although we might get that pullback here, who really knows, I still genuinely do believe that the door is now open to make the move to the all-time high and surpass that upwards to a 1.272 extension around $103,000. Now, what we are seeing on the shorter time frames is, again, that Bitcoin is backtesting and it's attempting its best to hold that previous level of support. It seems like it's going to try to do it. It would shock me if it is actually successful at this point, honestly, because we are putting in that double top. We seem to be putting in that structure to get this move to the downside. And if at any given point Bitcoin does come back down and lose $50,000, roughly $800, I would expect a possible move as low as back to around 48.5, maybe even a little bit lower towards $48,000. Now, the current breakdown target for Bitcoin, if its price is capable of losing $50,800, is now currently right around $48,890. So that could be a decent opportunity for a short trade if that's the way in which you want to go about it. Do be careful, of course, shorting against a macro bull market. Now, if you do want to do your shorting or your leverage trading in general, use the Margex link down below. I actually worked out a deal in which you can get a couple $100 as a deposit bonus. You don't need to use a VPN from anywhere in the world. You also don't need to KYC, meaning you don't need to give them any of your personal information. They have some of the best rates possible for Bitcoin, so you can trade this thing for some really, really good fees. So I would use that link link down below. And like I said, again, you can get a couple $100 as a deposit bonus to kickstart your journey. So with that in mind, of course, make sure that you do go check that out down below if, again, you do want to short Bitcoin once we lose 50.8 thousand, if we lose 50.8 thousand. Now, if you're not open to the leverage thing, of course, what you can do is we can kind of just check this thing out from a more DCA perspective just to get a feel. What I will say is that at this $50.8 thousand level, we are getting this DCA plus feature flashing, right? We can see that the signal is going off now. That is generally a sign in which, although yes, the price can continue downwards, it just goes to show that this is a generally good time to be DCAing in. If you want to get consistent good entries, the DCA plus signal is the best signal to use if you want to just constantly buy in at the best times. And so yes, although we might see the price pull back to the downside here, I still do think this is a generally good time to be buying in. And so because of that, of course, this morning over in the Patreon, I did announce that I did purchase a little bit more Bitcoin, because again, I do think that even in these moments in which there is a risk that we crash to the downside or pull back to the downside, it's not always guaranteed, right? There are chances in which we will get a bounce here. The last time this DCA feature did bounce, of course, here we did see a move to the upside of about 4.5 to 5%. So that was a beautiful buy. Even though the price is even now, that was a beautiful buy, and I think that there's a chance that we could see this thing look to continue to the upside, but it does feel more likely to me that we will get this move to the downside. But like I said before, when I'm DCAing, when I'm simply just adding to my bags, I just want good times to buy. I don't care if it pulls back under this. I'll just buy again once we do get that move. So overall, everything does seem healthy. Yes, a pullback to the downside is possible. Yes, a move to 48,000 is possible. But at the end of the day, the wells are still accumulating. At the end of the day, we are still seeing altcoins in the macro sense doing well. Most of them are still bullish over the year. And so although we do see a little pullback today, really not all that concerned. I'm just going to follow HG Algo and buy a little bit of crypto here. If you want to use HG Algo, you can use it down in the link below. It's always an option there. But at the end of the day, I'm just going to, again, be buying some more Bitcoin, buying a little bit more crypto this week. Kind of just relaxing. So with that in mind, that was kind of the update on the market, talking a bit about the alt, seeing what they're doing, taking a look at what the whales are doing. Let me know your thoughts on what you're doing down in the comments below. Are you buying? Are you selling? Are you shorting? Are you longing? What's your play? What's your strat? I would love to hear it down there. And of course, I will be chit-chatting with you along the way. So of course, I hope you guys did enjoy today's video. I appreciate you for tuning in, and well, I will see you all next time. Peace out, everybody.